Hey guys, welcome to the Learn Feng Shui podcast, where you'll learn Feng Shui from a classical point of view, taking out the myth and superstition. So if you're interested in learning Feng Shui, Chinese astrology, all things Chinese metaphysics, as well as the superstitions and myths that connect it all, you'll enjoy learning Feng Shui with me. Hey guys, welcome to the Learn Feng Shui podcast, where ancient traditions meet modern living. I'm Candace Berlanga, certified Feng Shui practitioner and red ribbon professional with the International Feng Shui Guild. Today's episode is going to be a little different than I usually do at the beginning of the month. I was going to do energy update, but I'd be lying if I told you guys I had my newsletter finished at the time I'm recording. By the time this podcast comes out, I should have that newsletter at learnfengshui.com. But as I'm getting ready for this week and getting ready to put an episode out, I don't have it ready. Been extra busy with clients and all the energy shifts for the new year. So I haven't had the most time to work on the newsletter. But that's okay because I thought I'd change it up a little bit. Today we're going to look at Eastern and Western philosophies that celebrate the beginning of spring. We're going to look at natural phenomena of the season, seasonal foods that will nourish and keep you healthy. And then I'll look at 5 meaningful ways to honor the energetic shift, as well as some weather lore, making predictions about the spring and if we're going to have early spring or not. This episode, we're looking at embracing new growth and fresh beginnings that spring will bring. So let's get into it. Sticking with the theme or tone of the energy update, let's start looking at the first solar term for the year. This will give us a little bit of a context or clue into why February is regarded as the beginning of spring. The first solar term is called Chūn, and that starts February 3rd and goes through February 18th. It's a 15-day solar cycle of energy or micro season. And it's the very first one. It's the one that starts the year off. So now it's officially the year of the snake. And during this time, we start to see warmer days and a rise in yang energy. Temperatures will begin to gradually rise. The yang energy starts to increase. And of course, this symbolizes growth, renewal, and movement. Sprouting plants will start to make their appearance. So in some regions, some early green shoots will start to emerge, signaling the awakening of life. I know my cherry tree, those early bloomers like the cherry tree, the plum, and all that, it is the time of year where you might start seeing blossoms. My cherry tree has little wood buds. So there's that. That always signals to me that the springtime is near, and it usually starts very early around this time. Increased rain and moisture. There's often increased rainfall during this time. Maybe we'll get some more rain. Spring moisture starts to return, and that supports this new growth. We might start seeing a little grass growth too. Migration and animal activity will start to change. So the birds like swallows start returning north. We get Canadian geese here in Texas, and so that's my marker. You might notice it where you live. I don't know what kind of animals you see. Hibernating animals will start to stir as the days lengthen. So this morning I went out to start my car and warm it up to take my kid to school. And there was a robin just chirping away in the tree in my neighbor's yard. And I was like, yep, that's the start of spring. So here we are at Chun. And plowing and planting will begin. So different farmers in China have long viewed Chun as a time of preparing and planting the field. So they don't plant yet, but preparing and tilling. It does mark an agricultural shift here in Texas too. Farmers will start plowing the fields. We are a big cotton and grain. We grow a lot of that around here. And so we'll start seeing the fields getting tilled, and our allergies should kick in pretty soon. So that's the marker that we look at. That can vary agriculturally, just depending where you're at and what's local to your area there. As we shift into February, we enter the first month of the spring season, and it's represented by the energy of wood. February, March, and April are tiger, rabbit, and dragon. They're all aligned with the wood energy and represent the season of spring. This represents a time of growth, renewal, expansion, and we see that with the plants that symbolize nature. The wood element encourages this new beginning and the nurturing of plants that'll flourish. It aligns good with the month of the tiger. So if we look at just the archetype of the tiger, as some people like to do, the animals associated with courage, strength, and bold action. And both these tiger and wood energies, we can find this drive to make these bold moves, take on new challenges, and we start to see a balance of yin and yang again. Just kind of reflecting on the wisdom of the YiJing and the hexagram that represents the month of February. So the YiJing is just a system of forecasting or divination. And so if you're looking at timing or you ask a question about timing and you pull this hexagram, then it represents the month of February. And it symbolizes harmony and balance in the yin and yang. The hexagram is represented by two trigrams, and those are heaven and earth. This represents the forces of heaven and earth in perfect alignment. Just like an equal balance of day and night, we experience more towards the spring equinox. It's kind of this invitation for us to harmonize our own energy, and the longer daylight hours signify this energy of growth and renewal, and the stillness of the night still holds that yin energy of rest and reflection. We probably start to feel more energized. I feel more energized than I had in a long time. I don't know. Since the winter solstice, I feel like the dark, it's been really warm here in Texas. But, that does not mean we're out of the woods for cold weather. And we'll talk about during our weather lore. We'll look at that here in the prediction for spring in just a minute. But first, looking at Western traditions, the observance of Chūn or beginning of spring corresponds closely with the pagan wheel of the year and the observance of Imbolic, which is a traditional Gaelic name for February 1st and traditionally marks the beginning of spring also. And in some traditions, it's called St. Bridget's Day or Candlemas. And both Chūn and Imbolic both mark the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It's a time also for purification, the spring cleaning, anticipation of a new life. In ancient Rome, it was called Shepherd's Holiday. Well, the Gaels associated it with the onset of the ewes' lactation prior to birthing the spring lambs. So, just like with Eastern traditions, the Western traditions also looked to nature to symbolize or to look for those natural markers. So both cultures look to that to symbolize or to signal to them that the energy was shifting. The observance of St. Bridget's Day is a pre Christian festival marking the beginning of spring in the Celtic calendar. Traditionally, it's a time of renewal, fertility, and protection, symbolized by weaving of St. Bridget's cross and the lighting of sacred fires. More specifically, the sacred fire of Kildare. This is a perpetual flame that's kept burning by the St. Bridget's nuns and symbolizes divine inspiration, much like the fire of Chinese metaphysics. So both traditions recognize this was a seasonal threshold, and it symbolized this awakening of life, fertility, and creative inspiration. There's very much a connection there. And the honoring of that spring and growing energy. And we weren't alone in looking at weather lore. So, looking at predictions for spring, both Imbolic and Chūn have their own ways. Speaking of that natural phenomena, Imbolic weather lore. In Celtic tradition, Imbolic February 1st was seen as a time when the spring begins emerging, but the weather on this day was believed to predict the remaining length of winter. So folklore suggests that if the day was bright and clear, that winter would actually last longer. And this was due to something called the divine hag of winter. It was said that if the day was nice, she was out gathering firewood, and the winter would last longer. But if the day's cloudy or stormy, she was asleep, meaning spring would come sooner. And we can't talk about this connection to weather lore without looking at Groundhog's Day, which occurred, as I'm recording this will be yesterday, February 2nd. Traditionally, I know Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, so it's predicted that there's 6 more weeks of winter. If it's a sunny day, the groundhog sees its shadow, predicting 6 more weeks of winter. But if it's cloudy, it suggests an early spring. So just like these customs kind of evolved from this European weather lore that was brought to America by different settlers, and it reflects seasonal divination practices found in many traditions. Both Imbolic and Groundhog Day serve as these seasonal markers, highlighting humanity's longstanding connection to predicting the weather and wanting to know what lies ahead. It's also said that in Chūn, so in the Chinese traditions, that shifting winds, if it comes from the north, that the winter will linger, but if it comes from the south, the warmth will arrive sooner. There's also a thunder prediction. So, in some traditions, if thunder occurs around Chūn, it's believed to signal unsteady weather and possible droughts later in the year. If it's unseasonably warm on Chūn, a cold spell is expected to follow. So, if it's cold, spring may arrive more gradually. These align pretty closely. If it's nice on the day of Chūn or Groundhog's Day or Imbolic, then and we're gonna get a cold spell. I was looking at the weather, and it's supposed to be warm here the rest of the week, but next week it is gonna drop down and get a little bit chillier. It's just interesting to see how, even though they're different cultures, we still recognize the same pattern of it being nice and sunny on a specific day and that foreshadowing of bad weather later on in the season. I just think that's interesting, the parallels that we can draw from both sides of East and West. Another way the Chinese use to predict the weather for the year is something called the cowherder and the spring cow or the spring ox. And this is actually a picture in the Tongshu or Tongshan Chinese Almanac. It's one of the very first pages. It's actually kind of hard to find here in the West. I had to order from Amazon and just hope it was the correct thing because it's all in Chinese. So I specifically wanted it for this picture and I wanted to do my own little predictions here. It actually, this picture tells you a lot. It is basically a picture of a gentleman. He has a cow with him. There's some other things in the background. There's a stalk of wheat. He's usually holding a piece of wheat or a whip, and the sun is in a specific position in the sky. And all of this tells us a different thing. The copy I got is in black and white, but usually there will be different colors that are used to represent different things in this picture. It tells us a lot of information. But specifically for weather, it will reveal a lot of different things. And even the position that he stands in, so in this case, he's standing behind the ox, that means that this Li Chun is actually more than 5 days after the Lunar New Year. He has something called a whipstick or willow whipstick that actually represents the 24 solar terms. The spring ox signifies a hope for a bumper harvest, abundance, happiness, and good weather. It says here when the cowherder is depicted as being barefoot with his trousers up, it means a rainy year. On the other hand, if he's wearing shoes on both feet, it indicates predictions of droughts and a forewarning that the farmers need to be better prepared. And an indication of good weather is if he has one shoe on and one shoe off. This year, he has two shoes on, meaning it's supposed to be a drier year. So there's just a bunch of different things that this picture can depict. But again, when we're looking just at weather, we can look at his shoes for indication. I know there'll be a fat ox or a skinny ox, and this year the ox is fat, meaning it's supposed to be an abundant year with a lot of resources, which I'm not sure how if there's a drought prediction with him wearing shoes. Let's take that and see if these predictions are correct. Now let's go into 5 ways to honor the energy of spring. 5 ways to honor energy of spring. Last month in my newsletter for January, I had a little section on spring cleaning. So you can go to the website and follow those tips. I can put the link up to the newsletter in the show notes below. So just generally, I don't want to spend too much time on it because we all know what to do for spring cleaning. Just refreshing your home, decluttering, opening windows, and even doing a spiritual cleansing with smoke, sound, or even intention, some essential oils, open them windows. I just said that. And do a spring cleaning slash space clearing. Keep that energy up in your house. Just welcome that new energy in. Another way you can honor this energy is to lighting a candle or lighting a fire. Maybe you light a fire on one of those cold days when the winter returns back. But you can honor St. Bridget's sacred fire and that Li Chun's rising yang energy by lighting a candle or a fire, a bonfire, or a fire pit outside, maybe just to symbolize that illumination, transformation, and renewal. Number 3, you can observe nature's signs. Taking a nice walk on one of those warm days, make it mindful, really notice the spring blooms or the spring buds that are on the plants. Notice returning birds, look at the shifting weather, and just really be present in nature, just kind of aligning yourself with the seasonal transition and the rising of this energy. I think it'll help give you some more vigor. I know, again, I can't say it enough. I feel like I have a lot of energy and I feel really good right now. So that I'll take it. Number 4, more vigorous exercise you can do now since the yang energy is building. Doing a little bit more vigorous exercise is totally fine for this time of year. Number 4, eating seasonal foods and warming foods still a bit cold. Support your body with this energy shift with lighter, nourishing meals. And foods you can eat during this time are going to be your spring greens. Make sure they are raw. They also help detox your body's liver and align with this energy of the wood element. Asparagus is a nice spring vegetable. It's also supposed to be good for supporting your liver health. It's a good seasonal food. Sweet potatoes are just recommended, I think, all the time. They're pretty good, but they're good for more of a earth energy. They nourish your spleen and stomach, but they are more warming and grounding in the cooler months. Still cold outside. And apples, just they're pretty available, but they also support liver and digestion. Eating the apple peel is recommended, and green apples are supposed to be good for detox. You can also juice them, and they have a lot of the same properties that you can find in what are called mung beans without having to go search. A lot of the Chinese medicine where we find hangups is that they are traditional Chinese foods. And so here in the West, I can't always find some of these foods that are recommended. So just finding an alternative is really good. So just those are some foods you can eat and setting your intentions for growth. It's a good time to make those New Year's resolutions. I talk about time and time again. January is still the midst of winter. The energy is growing, but it's like everything's still at a very much of a standstill. And so now that spring is here, just like farmers prepare the soil, it's time to plant seeds in our own personal life, set some goals, start new creative ideas, just things that help you grow, self-help, new business projects, expanding your business. All of those are really supported by the energy of February and this month that starts off spring. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got for today. So, looked at Eastern and Western traditions of spring, looking at that balance of yin and yang energy, how the wood energy and tiger months set the tone for growth, and that weather lore, seasonal foods, and aligning with the seasonal shift. Remember, spring's all about renewal, embracing that energy, no matter what the forecast says, even if it's cold outside. Next week will be feng shui for love and romance, little Valentine's episode for you. And go check out the newsletter on the website and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, bye.